Imagine, you're handed $1 million check for a cause you deeply care about.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a good start.
Right. Like, this money could build a new hospital wing, or it could fund a massive clean water initiative, or save a struggling community center from foreclosure.
Sounds perfect so far.
But, and there's always a but, there is a catch. That money came directly from, like, an illicit arms dealer, or maybe a corrupt warlord whose entire empire is built on exploitation.
Ah, okay. The plot thickens.
Yeah. So the question is, does the blood on that money infect the charity? Does the origin of the funding fundamentally corrupt the good deed itself?
That is such a heavy question.
It is. And according to this striking historical and spiritual blueprint we're exploring today, the answer is a terrifying yes.
Yeah, and the source we're analyzing today is this really dense, very pointed text titled The Leprosy of the Ledger.
The leprosy, the ledger.
Exactly. And it argues that money is, well, it's never just neutral math. Finances actually carry the history, the energy, and sometimes the inherent corruption of their source.
Right. It's not just numbers on a screen.
No, not at all. The author uses this ancient narrative to build a highly critical framework for diagnosing modern organizational and spiritual greed, really.
And we are looking at the story of a man named Gehazi. It's an ancient biblical account, but the way our source material breaks it down, Gehazi becomes this, it's an unsettlingly accurate mirror for the mechanics of corruption today.
It really is. It maps perfectly onto modern issues.
Before we jump in, just a quick disclaimer for you listening. This text offers a razor-sharp critique of certain modern religious practices, mega institutions, and leaders.
It definitely doesn't pull any punches.
No, it does not. But our objective here isn't to endorse these critiques or, point fingers at specific organizations. We just want to impartially deconstruct the author's arguments. We want to give you the full psychological and sociological picture of what this text claims is happening behind closed doors.
Right, we're just laying out the author's thesis for the listener.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this. Set the stage for us.
So the foundation of the author's argument rests on this massive inciting incident from the ancient world, specifically from the book of 2 Kings, chapter 5.
Okay, 2 Kings.
Yeah. We're introduced to Naaman. He is a Syrian general, a man of immense geopolitical power, massive wealth, and
a devastating tragedy.
Right. He has leprosy.
Which I think we really need to contextualize for a second, because leprosy in the ancient Near East wasn't just like a bad skin condition.
No, it was basically a death sentence.
Yeah, it was social death. It meant physical decay, isolation, and being ceremonially unclean. Naaman is a man who has conquered nations, right? Yet he is slowly rotting inside his armor.
It's a brutal image.
And no amount of plundered silver could buy him a cure.
Exactly. And that helplessness drives him across enemy lines to seek out the Israelite prophet Elisha. And the text highlights a profound disruption of the expected power dynamic here.
Because Naaman expects the VIP treatment, right?
Oh, absolutely. He arrives with this massive entourage, totally expecting to purchase a cure or perform some grand, heroic feat. He's a general, after all.
Right. He expects a show.
But instead, Elisha doesn't even come to the door.
Wow.
He literally just sends a messenger telling the generals, go wash in the muddy Jordan River 7 times.
Which Naaman hates at first.
He's furious. But when Naaman finally, swallows his pride and obeys, he experiences a complete miraculous healing. His flesh is totally restored.
And Naaman is absolutely overwhelmed. He returns to Elisha and offers him what amounts to a king's ransom.
Yeah.
We're talking silver, gold, incredibly valuable designer garments for the time.
A literal fortune.
He is essentially offering to underwrite Elisha's entire prophetic ministry for life. And Elisha looks at this fortune, looks at the healed general, and says, "As the Lord liveth, I will receive none." He completely rejects it.
Turns it all down. And the author hinges the entire concept of the leprosy of the ledger on this singular refusal.
See, I found myself really wrestling with Elisha's reaction here, because let me offer a modern equivalent for you.
Okay, let's hear it.
If a billionaire is cured of a terminal, seemingly incurable disease by this brilliant experimental doctor, and that billionaire is weeping with gratitude and wants to write a $50 million check to fund the doctor's research.
It should help so many people, yeah.
Exactly. Why on earth would the doctor say no? Is Elisha just being stubborn? It feels almost, arrogant to reject that kind of profound gratitude.
On a purely pragmatic level, it seems foolish, right? I mean, think of the good that money could do. But the source provides this really deep theological and psychological thesis for the refusal.
Okay, what is it?
The author argues that Elisha perceived an invisible tether between the wealth and the disease.
An invisible tether.
Yeah. Naaman was a pagan commander of a hostile army. His fortune was amassed through a corrupt, idolatrous, and violently exploitative system. The silver and gold were literally the spoils of war.
Blood money, basically.
Exactly. And in the biblical framework, leprosy is frequently utilized as a physical manifestation of inner corruption and sin. So Elisha couldn't integrate that wealth into his camp because he recognized it as the fruit of a leper's existence.
Okay, so it's like a computer virus hidden inside an email attachment.
Well, that's a great way to put it.
Right. Like on the outside, it looks like a gift. It's a free file, a massive donation. But the moment you download it into your hard drive or, your ministry's bank account, it executes a malicious code that corrupts the entire operating system from the inside out.
Yeah, it is the exact mechanism the text describes. Taking the money would act as an implicit endorsement of the violent system that generated it.
Wow.
Furthermore, the author dives deep into the power dynamics of gratitude and vulnerability. Because when someone is delivered from profound suffering, they are in an incredibly fragile psychological state.
Right, they do anything for you.
Right. Their instinct for reciprocity is an overdrive. The source argues that accepting money in that specific moment of deliverance creates a toxic spiritual bond.
You are effectively weaponizing their relief.
Yes, precisely.
If Elisha takes the gold, it subconsciously rewires Naaman's understanding of the event. It turns a miracle into a medical bill.
It makes it a transaction.
It suggests that deliverance has a price tag, replacing his physical bondage with a financial one to the prophet.
And the text is adamant about this. Grace, which is unmerited, unpurchasable favor, must remain entirely divorced from commerce.
It has to be free.
It has to be. If Naaman pays for his healing, he can claim he bought his way out of the disease. Elisha's refusal basically short-circuits the human instinct for commercial exchange, forcing Naaman to recognize the healing was a pure, unadulterated gift from a power way beyond his checkbook.
So Elisha leaves a staggering fortune on the table to protect that principle. But he has an entire entourage watching this happen. I mean, someone in his camp had to be losing their mind watching that gold walk away.
Oh, absolutely. And that brings us directly to Elisha's servant, Gehazi.
Gehazi.
Yeah. He watches Naaman depart with the treasure, and he experiences a complete psychological and moral break. He just cannot fathom letting that wealth slip through their fingers.
So if the master refused the money, how did his servant end up creating this blueprint for corruption?
Well, Gehazi sneaks away and actually chases down Naaman's chariot.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the way Gehazi extracts the wealth is what makes this story a timeless blueprint. Gehazi doesn't just run up panting and say, hey, my boss is too proud, but I'll take the cash.
No, he's much smarter than that.
Right. He engineers a highly sophisticated cover-up. He tells Naaman a total fabrication. He says, my master sent me to say that 2 young men of the sons of the prophets just arrived from the hill country, and they need a talent of silver and 2 changes of clothes.
What's fascinating here is the anatomy of that lie. It is the core focus of the author's modern critique. The text labels this the deception of the ministry cover.
The ministry cover.
Yeah. Gehazi understood that asking for himself would trigger suspicion immediately. So he weaponized the language of faith.
He invented a legitimate-sounding spiritual crisis.
Exactly. The arrival of young, needy prophets. He manipulated Naaman into believing he was investing in God's work, supporting the community, and furthering the ministry.
It is the ancient equivalent of modern charity scams, or like corporate greenwashing.
That is a perfect analogy.
You slap a label of sustainability or humanitarian aid on the operation, but when you look at the ledger, 95% of the donation is being devoured by administrative fees and executive bonuses.
Yep. And the author draws a searing direct line from Gehazi's lie to specific tactics used in some modern mega ministries today.
Really calling them out.
Oh, yeah. The critique targets leaders who pressure their congregations to, sow a seed into the vision or give to unlock a blessing. The text argues that the architecture of the deception is identical.
So the victim thinks they're giving to a good cause.
Right. The victim is made to feel they are funding a divine harvest, while the funds are actually being funneled into private jets, luxury real estate, and just exorbitant lifestyles.
The source points out the tragedy here isn't just the love of money. It's the extraction of wealth from vulnerable people under false pretenses. Taking money from a flock that is struggling to pay rent while the leader builds a multi-million-dollar mansion and calls it God's favor.
The audacity of the Gehazi spirit, as the text defines it, is utilizing the sacred to subsidize the profane.
Wow, that's a heavy line.
It is. It is lying to an outsider, taking advantage of their desire to do good, and hiding the spoils in a secret account.
You know, reading this heavy, unsparing critique of financial extraction in ministry made me push back on the author's overarching philosophy a bit.
How so?
Well, if taking the money from people you are helping is fraught with this much spiritual danger, what's the alternative? Are people who dedicate their lives to ministry or nonprofit work just expected to take a vow of absolute poverty? Does the source argue that everyone in ministry should be penniless? Starving in the streets?
No, not at all. The text explicitly rejects the idea that poverty equals holiness.
Okay, good.
The author actually spends a significant portion of the document establishing what they call the biblical balance. They rely heavily on the teachings of the Apostle Paul and Jesus to prove that ethical provision is completely necessary.
Right. I noticed the source quotes Matthew chapter 10, where Jesus sends out his disciples and tells them, the workman is worthy of his meat. Basically, if you are doing the labor, you deserve to eat.
Exactly.
But wait, in that same breath, in the exact same passage, Jesus commands them, freely ye have received, freely give. How does the author reconcile this tension? You're worthy of a wage, but you also have to give everything away for free.
It seems like a contradiction, right? But the reconciliation lies in a strict categorization of the who and the how.
Okay, break that down for me.
The text draws a sharp boundary between receiving support and extracting wealth. Let's look at the who first. The author contrasts Elisha's interaction with Naaman against the Apostle Paul's relationship with the church in Philippi.
Okay, so Naaman was an outsider. He was a pagan general experiencing the grace of Israel's God for the very first time.
Right. And because of that, Elisha had to refuse him. The text argues that evangelism introducing grace to someone outside the community must never carry a toll booth.
It has to be free.
Exactly. So the nature of the grace is unmistakable. But Paul, on the other hand, received financial support from the Philippians. They were insiders.
Ah, insiders versus outsiders.
Yes. They were established believers, partners in his work, and a community bound by mutual affection. The dynamic shifted from evangelism to internal fellowship. The author posits that a community joyfully supporting its teachers out of love and shared vision is entirely ethical.
That makes a lot of sense. Outsiders get the grace for free, so they understand the nature of the gift. Insiders support the infrastructure because they are invested owners of the community.
You nailed it.
That clarifies the who. But what about the how? Because the text gets into the mechanics of financial independence, specifically through Paul's tent-making principle.
Yeah, the Apostle Paul is a fascinating case study for the author. Paul repeatedly writes that he has the theological and moral right to demand financial support from the churches he planted.
But he doesn't always take it.
Right. He frequently waived that right. Instead of demanding a salary, he worked a grueling manual labor job. He literally made tents with his own hands.
And he wasn't doing that as, like, a fun hobby on the weekends?
No, not at all.
He did it so he wouldn't be a financial burden to the fledgling communities. It was the original gig economy side hustle, but utilized for ethical independence.
That independence is the absolute crux of the matter. By funding his own life, Paul inoculated himself against the temptation to manipulate his audience.
Because he didn't need their money to survive.
Exactly. He didn't have to preach a certain way to keep the donations flowing. He wasn't beholden to wealthy donors who might want to dictate his theology. If a church couldn't support him, or if he felt their money came with strings attached, he just went back to the leather and the needles. He made more tents.
Which really highlights the psychological failure of Gehazi.
It does.
Gehazi couldn't handle the vulnerability of relying on the invisible provision of God. He lacked what the text calls the trust factor.
Yes, the trust factor. The author anchors this in the concept of Jehovah Jireh, which translates to the Lord who provides.
Right.
Gehazi was supposed to operate under the principle outlined later in Matthew 6.33, seeking the kingdom first and trusting that material needs would be added. But Gehazi looked at Naaman's silver and saw tangible, immediate security.
He panicked.
He did. He outsourced his trust from God to a pagan warlord's wallet.
He traded the anxiety of faith for the illusion of control. He just couldn't wait for ethical provision, so he engineered a manipulation to force the outcome.
And he pulls off the ultimate con, or so he thinks.
Right. Let's go back to Gehazi. He lies to the general, secures the silver and those designer garments, sneaks back into town, and hides the stash inside his house.
He thinks he's beaten the system.
He really does. He has the wealth, and nobody is the wiser. So what happens when the truth comes out?
Well, the narrative tension peaks when Gehazi casually strolls back into Elisha's presence, playing the role of the dutiful, innocent servant. And Elisha looks at him and asks a devastatingly simple question.
Whence comest thou, Gehazi? Where have you been?
Yeah.
And the arrogance of Gehazi here is just stunning. He looks the prophet of Israel in the eye and says, "Thy servant went no whither. I haven't been anywhere. I've just been here doing my job."
It's a bold lie, but Elisha strips away the illusion instantly. He reveals that his spirit tracked Gehazi the entire time.
Oh, man.
He saw Naaman step down from the chariot. He heard the lie. He knows exactly where the silver is hidden. The cover-up has completely failed.
And the punishment Elisha hands down is that Naaman's leprosy will cling to Gehazi forever, which the text notes that Gehazi immediately walks out of the room, a leper as white as snow. It is a brutal, instantaneous consequence. But why that specific punishment? Why not just fire him or banish him or demand he return the money?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the author views this not as a random curse, but as profound, unavoidable poetic justice.
Poetic justice.
Yes. Gehazi lusted after Naaman's wealth, right? He utilized deception to extract the treasure of a leper's system. The spiritual law the text proposes is that you cannot sever the money from its origin.
The tether is always there.
Exactly. By taking Naaman's silver through manipulation, Gehazi simultaneously inherited Naaman's curse. You cannot handle the world's wealth through deceit without the grace of God, and you cannot commercialize grace without becoming entirely corrupt yourself.
You literally absorb the sickness attached to the ledger.
That's beautifully said, yes. And the source takes this ancient physical judgment and maps it onto the modern sociological landscape.
How does that look today?
Well, the author argues that today, this leprosy manifests as a spiritual death. A modern leader operating with Gehazi's spirit might be incredibly alive financially, right?
Right. They look super successful.
They have the sprawling campuses, the massive endowments, the media empires.
Right.
But internally, they are decaying.
Because remember, leprosy in the ancient world forced you outside the camp. You were cut off from human touch, from fellowship, from reality itself, really.
And the author suggests that modern manipulation achieves the exact same isolation. Leaders who extract wealth through deception end up surrounded by sycophants.
Yes,
Exactly. They become entirely disconnected from the true, struggling body of Christ they claim to serve. They are quarantined in their wealth, just rotting from the inside out.
Wow.
And the text warns that the silver hidden in the dark house of the organization will eventually manifest as public ruin on the character of the leadership. What's done in secret is ultimately exposed in public.
So what does this all mean? We have journeyed from the geopolitics of ancient Syria through the economic philosophy of the Apostle Paul, all the way to a blistering critique of modern institutional greed. For you, the listener, whether you are deeply embedded in a faith community, a supporter of secular nonprofits, or simply someone trying to understand the ethics of philanthropy, this source offers a vital framework for discernment.
It really does.
Yeah?
It functions as a diagnostic tool for evaluating the integrity of any organization asking for your resources.
The author is clear. Ethical laborers are absolutely worthy of their provision. Generosity is a virtue. But you must train your ear to recognize the Gehazi spirit.
You have to pay attention to how they ask.
Exactly. If an organization relies on manufacturing spiritual emergencies, if they weaponize your empathy, or if you observe leadership insulated by extreme luxury while the rank-and-file community can barely survive.
The ledger is infected.
Yes, the ledger is infected.
The text distills this into a powerful maxim. It says, ministry is not a hustle, it is a heartbeat.
I love that.
It's great, isn't it? The true currency of this work is faith and genuine service, not financial extraction. If an organization has to rely on the ministry cover, inventing the sons of the prophets to get to your wallet, they have abandoned the heartbeat for the hustle.
And the author's ultimate demand is radical transparency. Open books, clean hands, and the willingness to make tents if the donations don't come ethically.
That's the Pauline balance.
Exactly. Now, as we wrap up this deep dive into the leprosy of the ledger, I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on. Something looking a bit beyond just the text itself.
Okay, let's hear it.
We spent a lot of time discussing how Elisha saw the invisible tether between Naaman's money and the violent leper system that generated it. He refused the gold because he didn't want his work infected by its origin.
Right, the blood money.
So look at our modern infrastructure. How does the origin of modern wealth affect the institutions we celebrate today?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Right, because if a prestigious university builds a new science center or a hospital opens a massive new wing, and it is entirely funded by a billionaire who amassed that wealth by, say, devastating the environment, busting unions, or exploiting international labor.
Does that money carry a modern strain of leprosy?
Exactly. Can an institution ever truly accomplish pure, uncorrupted good if the foundation of its ledger is built on someone else's suffering? Does the end ever truly justify the means?
Man, that is a deeply uncomfortable question. It really challenges the entire philanthropic model of the modern era.
It does. It demands that we look far beyond the PR press release and really examine the roots of the tree. Can an organization ever truly do good work if its funding comes from a corrupt source? Something for you to mull over.
It's definitely going to keep me thinking.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep your curiosity sharp, always ask where the money actually comes from, and never stop seeking the truth behind the text.